Hi, my name's Jake, and I recently completed a PhD at an Australian university. I was lucky enough during my tertiary education to have a significant proportion of my fees funded through scholarships. But today I speak to you on behalf of my friends, my family, and future generations on the need for you to block the government's upcoming legislation on higher education reform. We currently sit in a critical moment of Australia's history where we need to decide what will drive our future economy. This is particularly important as our mining sector is starting to reduce its dominance within the economy, and many of our mass manufacturing industries have become increasingly unviable. I truly believe that if there is one sector in which we should be investing, it is that of education. We have the ability, the opportunity, and the skills to become a world leader in knowledge development. And by creating much closer ties between universities and industries, we can put that knowledge to use by spurring innovation within our own borders, leading to the development of niche, high technology manufacturing within Australia. The education system is also critical to our future tax revenue base. Despite the Federal Education Minister's repeated accusations that the taxpayer funds over 50% of higher education fees, he would do well to remember who indeed these taxpayers are. We know that graduates after university earn more. That fact is not disputed. However, they also in turn pay more tax, and that's great for our country. We want the next generation of Australians to be highly educated and well remunerated so that we can in turn expand our tax revenue base and fund better health, education, and infrastructure programs. The Education Minister should also note that the OECD's recent Education at a Glance 2014 report states that Australia's public expenditure on tertiary education only accounts for 45% of total funding. This is far below the 70-30% split of public-private spending amongst OECD nations. Australia also spends only 5.8% of GDP on all education sectors, which is again below the OECD average. In the OECD's report, they also show that the public cost of providing a man in Australia with tertiary education, as opposed to someone that just goes to secondary school, is approximately $20,000. This is compared with the total public benefit of over $124,000, meaning that this investment in a single man provides an internal rate of return of almost 13%. For women, this is even greater, with an internal rate of return of 13.5%. These figures show just how great an investment tertiary education is for our society, and how we should be doing more to encourage both men and women to study at university, not be discouraging them through increased private costs. The figures I have presented focus purely on the funding of education, but it's also important to remember that higher levels of education are associated with lower levels of depression, obesity, and smoking, which all affect the Australian economy significantly. Higher levels of trust and volunteering are also associated with those individuals who obtain tertiary education. We are presented with the argument by some Vice-Chancellors that the university sector in this nation is underfunded, and the OECD figures appear to support this notion. However, putting an unreasonable burden on university students is not the correct solution. We are happy to shoulder some of that load, but if costs must be increased, let's instead looking at simply raising the cap on current education fees, instead of completely deregulating the market so that universities can charge whatever they like. Higher education does not operate like a normal market. If you are to enroll in a degree at a particular university, you will likely not know whether it is the right degree or even the right university for you until maybe 2, 3, or 4 semesters after you start the program. Universities market themselves based on reputation and prestige, but these factors are not always reflective of the quality of education that is provided, and thus there is not an adequate price signal in this market that allows students to properly assess which option is best for them. As a former PhD student, I am also deeply concerned by the prospect of charging individuals to carry out research in this nation. PhD students form a strong foundation of the research capability of Australia. In comparison to many other countries, they are poorly remunerated, and it is already very difficult to recruit top undergraduate students to undertake research degrees. We should be looking again to encourage further collaboration between research students and industries to find alternative ways to fund research, rather than penalising the very people who give up 3 or 4 years of their future careers to further knowledge development in this nation. Does the Education Minister honestly believe that with an average degree costing more than $100,000, this will not affect undergraduate enrolments? This is certainly not something Australians should be aiming to achieve, particularly when many other countries are going in the opposite direction. In countries like Sweden, where I have had the privilege of studying for a number of years, all education is indeed free, and in fact, they pay students to go to university. Mature age students are also given the opportunity to reskill themselves for free. But today, I'm not arguing for a free education system. I simply am asking you to maintain a fair education system here in Australia. We are told that the HECS system provides us with the opportunity and the ability to pay for a $100,000 degree. In other words, the Education Minister wants to write a blank cheque to the universities which is underwritten by taxpayers. He already has made claims about the extent of the burden of HECS debt on our economy and the 20 to 30% of students who do not pay back their HECS debts due to becoming parents or moving overseas for work. Let's fast forward 5 years though, where this level of debt has at least tripled due to the deregulation of higher education fees, and a large percentage of Australians are now instead choosing to go and work overseas or become parents due to the lack of investment in our education system and the skyrocketing levels of debt. Will any Australian government really maintain a HECS loan system under these conditions? I think not. And then we'll be left with an education system where providers may charge whatever they like, and there is no HECS loan system in place in order to give the ability to less privileged individuals to undertake a tertiary education. This is not a system I want my younger friends, my younger family, or my own children to grow up under. Instead, why don't we inspire future generations to educate themselves, and importantly, allow mature age students to economically reskill themselves after their first or second careers? Let's aim for a future Australia that is highly educated, well remunerated, instead of one that is simply dictated by the affordability of education. It is a basic human right to have the opportunity to educate yourself, and we need to find alternative ways to reform the sector and increase levels of funding. Deregulation is not the answer, and I urge you to reject the upcoming bill in the Australian Senate that plans to do so. Thank you for your time.